David is one of my heroes. Look how cool he looks in a leather jacket. I was at an event that he spoke at, and I was just blown away. This is the Washington Post. I don't know if you remember that event. And here he
I
is.
was younger.
I did a tech demo with him years ago, AR, augmented reality. And he's spoken at my event out in Davos, and everyone loves David. He says provocative things, counterintuitive things, really interesting things. And it's really important to hear from someone like David, because if you fast forward to what he's doing now as the executive chairman of Nielsen, he knows what people are thinking. He's seeing the data. He sees trends. And as AI becomes a tool to kind of do modeling, it'll be very interesting how companies like Nielsen go forward, and I bet you have a take on it. And who's heard of streaming, the streaming wars?
Yeah.
Yeah, the TV streaming wars? No one's heard of it here? Yeah, you pay a lot of money for different things. So, he has some insight into that, and it'll be interesting. But his life started right there, and he went to is junior high school?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Walter French Junior High School.
Yeah. And so we found your yearbook, and this is a picture in your yearbook. Which is you, and which team is this, and what the hell does this say about the trajectory you were on as a little something to where you are today, a major leader, chair of the board of Best Buy, and helped found Digitas, and was acqui-hired for billions to help run something at IBM. David is a really big deal, but it all started here. So tell us about this.
Well, the nerds will prevail in the end. So that is a 50-year-old picture. It's from 1976. That junior high school also had in it Magic Johnson and Jay Vincent. So when my fellow teammates were going to make the NBA and the NFL, I was not awarded the same body type. So if I had to find something else to do, which was to use the mind. So the equations team we had 7 schools. You would roll the dice, you would get numbers and symbols, and you would make differential equations to equal the answer. And whoever got there fastest won. So you had to devise an answer and devise an equation. I hope kids still learn how to do that. I think AI can do it for you, but there's something about doing math. And you pointed out there have been a few cases where I have been fortunate to be at the early side of trends, but you see trends through numbers. You see trends through data, and I think we can use data in unprecedented ways now, and I think all of us can find a lot more to learn about the world through equations.
And this was really 50 years this week, is that right?
Probably, yeah. It's certainly 50 years this spring. So that was the spring 1976 yearbook photo.
So this is being recorded. All these names are going to be public domain. Have you kept up with any of these folks?
Well, that's my brother.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I still talk to him. I don't know the rest.
All right.
And like you noticed there was only one girl in that. I would hope today that it would have more gender parity in the nerd team.
And I'm going to foreshadow this, but you were the CEO of Nielsen, but you were also the chief
diversity officer,
of Nielsen at the same time. Yep. And diversity's been a loaded word recently. I can't wait to
Not for me.
Yeah. No, I know. I can't wait for you to kind of talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So you grew up in Michigan.
Yep.
And then what is this logo?
Well, when I went there, it was called the General Motors Institute. So in 1929, the car industry was like the AI industry. Now you couldn't get enough talent. So they started their own college. It was a co-op school, which we all went through. By the time I finished in 1984, GM realized it couldn't afford to run the school just by itself. And quite honestly, there's little diversity when everybody comes from GM and works at GM. So they opened it up to the rest of the industry and named it after their founder, Charles Kettering.
So were you there when it was a pipeline to work at GM?
Totally, yeah.
But you didn't go that path?
Well, I did initially.
So you went there thinking you were going to go work at GM?
And I did after I graduated, and then they paid my way through Harvard Business School, and then I went back.
Yeah.
And then Bain called, and I decided.
So you did do a stint at GM?
I did.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
In engineering, yeah.
And was this a nonprofit or for-profit school?
It's owned by a corporation.
Yeah.
Once Kettering spun out, I think it's a nonprofit today. It's a fully accredited technical school. So it only gives 5 degrees: mechanical, chemical, electrical.
Yeah. So, actually,
computer science.
just you made me think about this. Apparently, Buffalo was offered to be the Detroit before Ford could have set up shop in Buffalo, but they passed and it went to Detroit. And we think about Silicon Valley, and someone told me recently that Silicon Valley has the equivalent GDP of China right now. But before Silicon Valley, there was Detroit and St. Louis and Route 128. So these things do move around. All right. So then you went to Harvard Business School.
Well, and it's on the Canadian border, so free trade had a lot to do with the creation of that car industry. So
yeah,
it's a problem today.
Yeah. So Harvard Business School. Any interesting stories from your time there? What was that like?
It was great.
Yeah. All right. All right.
Well, I would say, so if you grew up the first kid in your family to go to college, you're on the equations team, you go to General Motors Institute, I had a strong but narrow view. Mm-hmm. The advantage of the business school is just you meet people from all around the world doing all sorts of interesting things. So it was a great opening of the mind.
Yeah.
The classes were great, but I would say the real education was the other students.
All right. So then you went to Bain, and where were you based?
My partner Jim Gilbert's out here, so
yeah,
just Simon.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was your life like at Bain? Like what projects were you put on?
And I worked with Paul and Sandy Edgerly. So
nice.
You saw the equation thing, so all of it's been data. So I did a lot of interesting data work. Bain doesn't talk about most of its clients, so I respect that. But
yeah,
did a lot in financial services, a lot in banking about the use of data to better serve people.
Great. All right. So then, how did you go from there? You made partner, and some people who become partners, they stay for life, but you left.
Lots do.
Yeah, but you left.
I did. So one of the projects I did at Bain in, I think it was 1994, was the first internet strategy for, this was American Express, and at that time the internet was AOL, Prodigy, and CompuServe. So, and it got me interested in sort of how was that actually going to work, what was going to be a business model. Paywalls were not working, people were not paying for content, so this gave me the idea of advertising, and how would advertising work when you had so much more data that it sounds obvious now that you could give the right ad to the right person at the right time. Mm-hmm. And that, caused me to work with Hellman and Friedman to buy Bronner Schlossberg Humphrey and create Digitas.
Yeah, let me double down on that. So you bet on digital before anyone believed in it. You built Digitas into $1 billion company before most CMOs even had an email address. What did you see in 1997 that everyone around you was missing, and what did it feel like to be betting your career on something nobody yet believed in? And do you agree with that statement? You may not.
Lots of CMOs had email, but they paid their assistant to read it, and then they wrote the responses, and then paid their assistant to type it back in. Don't use AI that way.
Yeah.
So there are people using AI exactly the same way.
Yeah, you've seen that movie, yeah.
So they wanted it to serve them, but you never get it exactly right. So we were early with this idea that you could communicate with people more effectively on digital. I'll later come to being right. Being right is important, but being right at the right time is super important. So we were ahead of the game, and then everybody got excited, and there was this whole .com bubble, and the little
2000, yeah.
Yeah, so the company went from 100 million in total capital to $2 billion on the stock market to 88 cents. So it was never right, and I think you've always just got to know your intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get the timing right, and markets get frothy, and then they get chilly, and then they get frothy, and the answer is always somewhere in the middle.
Okay. So tell us about this. You wrote this.
Yeah, so that's
December 2000.
In Harvard Business Review, Contextual Marketing. It was all about why the mobile device was actually going to be the preferred internet device. It was
Apple Newton.
It was back to those days, yeah.
Total bomb, but yeah.
Well, but it wasn't. You could see that it would work. The iPhone was a much better factor. So this was, the whole article was, forget the way the internet works today. We're not going to chase people. We're going to know where they are. The context is going to matter. We're going to give them the right ad at the right time.
Yeah. I think in Minority Report, Tom Cruise is walking through a hall, and there are these ads.
But
right for him.
It was another great example of just being wrong by just being early by 20 years.
So it felt wrong even though you were right.
You could see it in the data that it would be preferred, but it was only a small sliver of people using it that way at the time. Like, there were people who used the Newton, and if you actually looked at hardcore users, you could see that would work for everybody as the form factor got better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's useful for people here is, I would say the lesson I learned, I keep trying to say, like, if you see it, if you follow young people, if you see what they're doing, it will happen. If you follow high school and college students today and the way they use AI, you see a very different world than the way we're using it. And I think it's very similar to this case. So now I would say with wisdom, AI is going to be a thing. It's probably going to be in 20 years, not 2. So the technology is going to be possible in 2 as it was here. Mm-hmm. Human adoption always takes longer, and it's generational.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to come back to that. So, what is this about? And
well, this is when we were hot. This is when we got started, and immediately got on the cover with Donnie Joyce and the guy who ran McCann. Like,
yeah,
this little Boston agency made the big time very fast.
And you're in the center too.
Yeah, and younger. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then you left Digitas, something you put blood, sweat, and tears in building, and you.
Well, to be fair, somebody paid us $2.9 billion to buy it, and then we cashed the check, and then I stayed for a couple years at Publicis, and then I left.
Yeah. Okay. So are those called golden handcuffs, or?
A little bit, but I wouldn't say I was handcuffed. I learned a ton. Yeah. I learned a ton to be on the board of a French company, and I learned a lot from Publicis, but it wasn't my. Yeah. Dream. I needed to get back to the data. Yeah. So yeah, I went to Akamai. So.
Yeah. No. Okay. I thought I had a Publicis logo here. No. All right. So then you went to Akamai, Danny and Tom Layton. To tell us about how you found your way there and what you do there.
When Digitas was a public company, Paul Sagan, the CEO of Akamai,
was related to Carl Sagan.
Yeah, is. So in his own right, Paul's a great leader. He was on the board of Digitas and very helpful. When we sold Digitas, then he asked me to join the board of Akamai, and sadly they had lost Danny, as you know, on 9/11, 2001. So I only got to know the history of him. Tom Layton was amazing. Yeah. Learned a lot on the board, and then when I left Publicis, they invited me to come in and be the president there, as they were kind of making a leadership shift.
So Akamai to me is one of those companies that could have gone west but stayed here. Maybe in a few sentences explain what the technology was at the time. Had to do with streaming and video.
Yeah, well, Tom Layton was in the math department at MIT. He wrote today the best textbook still on algorithms. And he found the best kids in his class, and he gave them a math problem, which was to build the algorithm to eliminate traffic. Like, if you could actually schedule when people drive, you could have a traffic-free, totally going at full speed limit. People would just have to go at the time they were going to go, and they'd have to park and wait for their turn. That, of course, doesn't work. Humans don't do that. Humans don't like to be told what to do. But he took the technology and applied it to the internet. If you applied the same thing to all the content on the internet, and you could park it in the right places, you could get streaming to work without buffering, which is why things like Netflix exist today and Hulu exists today, all of that technology. And quite honestly, the internet would be very chunky, and we'd have a lot of buffering and wait time if it weren't for Akamai, even today. And then they just embedded that technology in all 12,000 telcos that are the infrastructure of the internet, and they're the traffic directors that made the internet happen, allowed streaming to happen. This was the project I worked on, which was to make iTunes work, because people don't want to wait for the downloads. They want to buy the app and have it and use it in seconds. Yeah. And so there was a lot of work between Akamai and Apple that kind of created that technology, which is, another reason I just got super focused on mobile as the ultimate device.
Yeah. All right. So at this time, you were thrown on the Google of its time, the Yahoo board. What was that like? Any interesting stories? Who's used Yahoo this year?
This year? Oh, good.
Who hasn't used Yahoo this year?
Yeah, okay. Of course. Sports, finance, right? At that time, Yahoo's search business was bigger than Google's. Google was just getting started. And
Was Alta Vista around?
It had kind of been absorbed in, but people went to
Because Alta Vista came from digital. That could have been the Google.
Yeah. But people went to Yahoo every day. There was a daily habit to check your mail, check sports scores, check stock prices, and check the weather. So I kind of saw all that work. And then Google just slowly ate away at those daily
So in those
habits.
board meetings, did you anticipate that Yahoo would be smaller than it was and that Google would be the leader, or did you not see that coming?
Yeah, but we could have bought Google and we didn't.
Yeah.
And then
Were you in the meeting when that
I
was
came
brought
right
up?
at the end of that, and then Microsoft offered to buy Yahoo, and it got turned down. Boards face such a dilemma. It got turned down because the belief was we could do better on our own.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough of a price. The problem when you turn down an offer which is almost double your current stock price, your shareholders have like about 12 seconds of patience to see you get there. So then Yahoo got it. It never could dig out because
Yeah.
the shareholders were, and the activists were so crazy that you turned this down, you need to give us $35 tomorrow. And
Right. So
it didn't work that way.
you just mentioned weather, because you then became a major leader at the Weather Channel. Talk about how did you find your way there, and what innovation did you bring to the Weather Channel?
So Weather had been an investment of Bain Capital, Blackstone, and NBC Universal. The economics at the time were mostly in the cable channel, and I was this equations guy from Akamai, and I was like, I don't. It was a little. Listen, it still hasn't totally happened. I don't know why anybody needs a cable channel for the weather. Like the mobile phone works very well. You can give people weather on their phone to their own location, real time, and so they'd kind of been moving along, and not really getting the value from the investment. And I said, try something new. Let's move the whole thing to mobile. And so that's what I went in to do. So this was the cover of Business Week. We actually did make huge progress there. Just in simple terms, when you do weather for 60 years was largely done on mainframe computers. You ran the model to predict the weather every 6 hours. It took 6 hours to run it. And then you communicated largely on television or through airport.
A storm in 6 hours could come and go.
But you should know that in advance. You're predicting 72 hours out. So anyway, when we moved it, I did 2 deals in my first year. One was with Apple to be preloaded on all of iOS, and the other was Google to be the default. There are very few things when you actually search for something, it doesn't give you the list. It actually gives you the answer in a one box. SourceWeather.com. It's the only one that's an outside company. Everything else is source Google Travel.
That's a gangster move.
Yeah. So, except we then had to do it. And so...
so you were selling air.
But we got it done because we had to use something called machine learning. I've got all of you checked the weather today before getting in your car. No humans did that. It's all written by machine because we went from 2 million locations every 6 hours to 3.2 billion locations every 15 minutes. And so that took a lot of, you had to take people out of the process. You had to actually make sure it didn't hallucinate. There was something very important when we put it on the mobile phone, which was we learned to say we have 70% accuracy that this is going to happen. We have 80% confidence this is going to happen. It always says percent chances because it's never 100. It was not a large language model, to be clear. It was a very small language model. Sunny, cloudy, partly cloudy, rainy, hurricane, tornado, blizzard. That's all it needed to know. But it's a prediction. My friends at OpenAI, my friends at Anthropic, it's the same methodology, just with a lot more data. They're never 100% sure. It is a predictive model, by definition.
All right, so you mentioned...
And so it was the early days of just learning, and I think what's important in prediction is to tell people your confidence interval. That's my one request of AI in the future. Just tell people you're 80% confident.
And these are early days where we can bake in these things. So that's a profound thought. So you mentioned Apple and you mentioned Google, but you ended up doing a deal with IBM. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you have any non-compete or like how did this deal come about? Did they knock on your door? Was it your idea?
No, so we had worked with them on the B2B application. So most people know the mobile phone. I would say the most interesting thing we did at Weather was to build a system that could be used on tablets in airplane cockpits. So if you're a pilot, you can't fly without filing a weather plan. It's the law. That's why there's weather in every airport and in the FBOs. We vastly improved the accuracy of weather throughout the flight and knowing weather in the atmosphere. And it really helped more flights be able to go versus cancel, and it helped reduce turbulence by like half.
Wow.
Which actually it's great for the passengers, and it's really good for the airplanes. So we worked with IBM on the B2B applications. They then, I really did think it was going to go to Google because maps and traffic and weather are all local. They go together.
Could you have put your finger on the scale and made it go to Google, or?
So when you're owned by private equity, there's only one thing that matters, and that's what people are willing to pay you, and whether it's cash or stock. So IBM outbid them all.
Yeah.
And
$2 billion?
More than that.
Yeah.
So
10 billion?
Not less than that, but in the right ballpark.
Yeah. And were they just acqui-hiring you? That's why they did it?
I don't think so. At the time, they had done Watson, which had done a really interesting parlor trick in Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Jeopardy's not a prediction. Jeopardy is actually a known answer. That's why it worked.
Yeah.
They needed something to move in this predictive area towards what we now know as
They did medicine and health and weather, right?
Well,
Those are the two things.
They tried a lot of things. So they needed the technology to have something at scale. That's why they bought it. And then I ran Watson.
So IBM comes calling. They buy it. Your shareholders are happy, and then you get a big job at IBM. You're the head of cloud, right?
Well, first Watson.
First Watson.
And then keep in mind what I just said about weather. Like you need, when you want to move it on the mobile phone, the only way you're going to do 3 billion locations every 15 minutes at a cost structure that works is to leave mainframe and go to, it was all done on AWS. It was the biggest application on AWS in like 2012.
An IBM product was...
But IBM went on IBM Cloud, and I didn't think the IBM Cloud was really the same as AWS. So then I tried to fix that too.
Yeah. So could Watson have been ChatGPT before ChatGPT under your leadership?
What I would say was an important lesson, and this was the dilemma. The algorithms of IBM research at the time of Jeopardy were outstanding. The stuff that was done in the labs around health and other things was really good. But to make it work at scale and to keep learning, you need a lot of compute network and storage, more than IBM had, and actually more than OpenAI had. So cloud was the only way to actually scale it up. I would say the deal OpenAI did with Azure in the beginning was what changed it. Like it was everybody was about the same in the lab, but then they got compute. And I think this is why there's, such a, I think belief in the market cap of NVIDIA now, because weather was all on NVIDIA chips too. Like being able to have enough compute really matters. And I think there's no substitute for that, and you gotta kind of borrow from the future. These companies are all spending more on compute than they're making right now, with the belief they're gonna get there. And some of them will, but you've got to know your constraints.
All right. So now let me move on to Nielsen.
Okay.
So you get a big job. What did you think they wanted you to do when they asked you to be the CEO of Nielsen?
They wanted to plan forward because they'd kind of drifted, and I'd say all of these themes have been being willing to cannibalize the existing business for the future. So Nielsen had enormous market position in linear broadcasting, so the ratings for television and radio, and cable, but they were all built in a time when things were on a schedule. So if you're going to do the ratings,
must-see TV on Thursday.
All choices. Everybody had about 200 choices, 200 channels, and 48 half-hour time slots. In that grid, you could take a sample and measure pretty accurately. Same thing on radio. Like it's basically there's only so many radio stations. Streaming changed everything. Streaming has infinite amount of content and infinite amount of start and stop times. So what I said to Nielsen was, well, here's how we solve that problem at weather. We just believed the future was mobile. We did it. You could cannibalize a little bit of the current business to get there. I think we have to do the same thing. I think we have to accept the fact that streaming is a more effective way to entertain yourself. And the only thing that's still watched, and today, really the only thing that's still watched on a schedule, like 90% of linear, is sports. Occasionally breaking news,
Yeah.
but really sports.
Yeah.
So then all of entertainment needed to move. So we had to do the same thing. We had to build all these AI algorithms, get a different set of data. And I had to go do a set of new deals because I had to put YouTube, which was most important. That's the YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, all into the ratings.
Yeah.
And they needed to know we could do it accurately, which was a totally different way of doing it.
Yep.
Than the way you would have done.
So let me ask you this: you're a data nerd, and you see what the polling or surveying is telling you. What do you know about the American public or the global public that people may not realize in terms of this moment? I feel like there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and most people know very little of what's going on.
And that the data is telling you that?
Yeah, well, we see it in their consumption of news and information. We see it in the way they respond to polls. So we see it, whether they be political polls or something else. Most people in America know how fragile their job is. They know the cost of groceries and gas. They know the cost of rent and insurance and healthcare. They kind of know there's a couple wars, but those are far away. They kind of know that there's noise in Washington, but they just think all of them are mad at the other half, and so they kind of ignore it. Mm-hmm. It's really about sort of what's in their existence right now. So,
what about Gen Z and Gen Alpha? What do you know that people may not realize?
I would say back to AI, Gen Alpha increasing, and this is a little bit more at the affluent level because they have to have access. But if you have access to a smartphone, you're using ChatGPT or Claude the way we would have used a browser, Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever. So they start with it, they talk to it every day. It does things for them. They're building agents to do what they want to do. They're having relationships. And I think they just have a very different, almost R2-D2 kind of relationship with these AI models.
So a big part of Nielsen is doing surveys and polling. Can you just ask AI to do that, and you don't even need to bother people?
Yes, and AI also answers the polls, right? So you got to make sure you're actually getting real data. Yeah, if you get the right data to start with and you train it, you can have virtual twins of consumers that can tell you a lot and can be helpful.
And are you doing that at Nielsen effectively, or helping to serve your clients?
We are. I mean, it's a part of the methodology.
Mm-hmm.
Back to hallucination, I'm still a big believer that you need empirical evidence because to avoid, you can't hallucinate on ratings because $100 billion trades on it.
Yeah.
So you've got to actually have an audit trail. So I still think it's important to have a sample.
So real quick, just anything profound on the shift that's taken place because of the streaming? You kind of touched on
I
that.
would just say there's two things I would say that are kind of what I'm focused on next. And not just now I've got other boards and things I'm working on. One is, if I go all the way back to sort of the things that we predicted early, I don't know how quickly it's going to happen, but it's not at all clear that apps survive. Like,
could be the 8-track cassette.
Why do people need apps? Like, most people are not loyal to any of this. They're loyal to shows. They're loyal to series. They're loyal to books. I'm a nerd, so I did build an agent. So what my agent does is when my wife tells me what she wants to watch, it says where it's streaming, it signs up for the streaming service. When we get to the end, it cancels the streaming service. You have to let it have...
Who wants that app?
I recommend that you do it on your own mini Mac because you got to put a credit card in it and you don't want that used for anything else.
Yeah.
But so it's a little bit...
It's so funny how Apple has found a niche in AI when they weren't even trying with the mini Mac.
Eventually, the interface is going to be Siri on Apple. It's not actually going to be the apps. It's a kind of artificial organizing principle.
Yep. All right, just a few last things. So you're on the board, you're the chair of the board of Teach for America.
I am.
Is that, how's that similar to your day job? How's that different?
I got to make, I would make a big plug for Teach for America. So Teach for America each year brings about 3,000 graduates out of college campuses into public service for 2 years. People used to join the Peace Corps. For 35 years, we've had them join a teaching corps. Of that, those who stay in education, we have 600 superintendents now who are there. We've got 5 members of Congress. A lot of people saw James Tallarico, and he's Teach for America in Texas, so we'll see. He might have picked an easier state. We got governors, we got mayors. I think it's just really important we bring young people into service. Many of them go back onto careers. We've just started with Bain, McKinsey, and BCG, where you can get your offer, and then they'll defer your offer for 2 years if you Teach for America for those years. I'd like to see more people do that because everyone's got this angst. There aren't enough entry-level jobs. How are the kids gonna, and they're working from home, how are they gonna learn leadership skills? I got news for you. The best way to build leadership skills, put them in an inner city classroom for 2 years. They will learn leadership skills, they'll learn resilience. So I just think it's an example of service as the start of a career, which I think is a really important solution to some of the AI dislocation.
You're chair of the board of Best Buy.
Yeah.
That's not a nonprofit.
It is not.
What can you tell us that might be insightful from your experience leading that right now?
Everybody competes with Amazon. I think the rules have changed. Amazon and most of retail no longer makes money selling things. You sell things to get data to serve people in other ways. Best Buy makes its money on Geek Squad and advertising. And it gets differential, because it has a unique experience. There are a lot of products that people choose to only sell through Best Buy. Like Meta glasses, you can only buy at Ray-Ban and Best Buy. 40% of the Copilot for Consumer suite out of Microsoft, you could only buy here. So I think there is some differentiation if you provide service, but the value in the future is in the data, not in the transaction.
Nice. The data nerd from Michigan State.
Well, you should all be data nerds.
Right. So last closing statement, and thank you, David Kenny. Looking back, you've ridden 3 major technology waves: the web, cloud, and AI. Each time joining a company that was early. What do you predict? What's your prediction for the next 25 years?
Here's what I think is most important, that we're living in a world where trust is eroding and people don't know what is truthful anymore, and there isn't any longer a shared narrative because there's so much diffusion of where you're getting information. The last time we had this erosion of trust was at the Gilded Age, when the robber baron, a few people got all the money, and it kind of...
When the Algonquin Club was originally built?
Yeah, exactly. And then the stock market crashed, and out of the stock market crash, and I really hope we can avoid that part, but out of the stock market crash, to restore trust was it's boring as hell, but the creation of FASB, the Accounting Standards Board. The fact that we all have generally accepted accounting principles, so we actually all agree what is revenue, what is cost, what is cash flow, is why the markets trade. I think in so many other areas we need generally accepted trust principles, so that just like that, we've got standards, we can get empirical evidence, we can test the standards. We need more places where we can all trust a common set of facts, because otherwise we can't work as a society. And quite honestly, the economy that's going to come off data is only going to work if we trust it. So it's kind of nerdy, but I kind of want to build a FASB for all the other data sets beyond the financial ones.
And I bet you got some cycles, and you could help with that as we enter this unknown. So
my fellow nerds are with me on that one.
Thank you. David Kenny, ladies and gentlemen.